Kush and Cow Show. Kush and Cow Show. Kush and Cow Show. It's the Kush and Cow Show.
On, my brother. You see it? Yeah. See how the thing set already? You back outside. Works one works, you know?
You see it?
But that is the progression.
Yeah.
That is how it's set. You see it? We here continuing on the trend. We here going forward, upward, as we say. You see it? We here today with a legend. I just call it as I see it.
Yeah.
We here with a world-renowned legend today. So we definitely heading in that direction.
Yeah.
You see it? Today we have with us Timothy Doyle, better known as Tib Dub. You see it?
Yeah.
Tim, hang on, my brother.
Respect.
You see it? Living
Yeah,
legend and everything. Why? It's such a
boy.
pleasure and honor to sit down in the high presence. Same way. You see it?
Those are huge, honorable words. Enough respect.
Yes,
Thank
man.
you very
Yes,
much.
man.
Appreciate it.
You see it? Welcome to Kush and Couch.
Nice vibe.
You see it?
Yes, sir.
We blaze up,
Yes, sir.
we rock back,
Yes, sir.
and we reason.
Cool.
So we here and we holding our vibes today. I know your career span over decades,
Yeah.
but I want to give you an opportunity to bring the world into who is Tim or who is
Sure.
Timothy.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about who you is
Sure.
first before we get into the thing. Yeah?
Sure. Well, I would say I started music from an early age.
Mm-hmm.
My progression in the music, I would say, is almost the progression of Jamaican music.
Yes,
in
sir.
terms of, I started with ska,
Right.
rock steady. Well, I started as a ska musician and essentially grew into becoming a reggae producer.
And for those that mightn't understand them, what ska is, could you explain
Ska
it
would be
briefly for them?
the origins of reggae.
Yes,
Yeah.
I.
Right. Coming off of Mento.
Yeah.
Faster paced, supposedly with more of an influence of American R&B
Okay.
from those times. But when I listen to the Scatolites and ska music from the early days,
Yes.
I would say I hear jazz more than I hear American R&B.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they say the influence of ska music was from American R&B. Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel like my progression in the music is the same way that the music changed. I've
adapted
changed
and evolved
adapted.
along with
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah, totally.
And let's talk about immersing yourself in that culture.
Sure.
Because you weren't born in Jamaica.
Sure.
You was born in Canada, am I
Correct.
right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yes?
Yeah.
And how did that come about? How did you making that decision to go to a foreign land,
Sure.
foreign people,
Sure.
foreign culture,
Sure, right.
and immerse yourself in it? And how did that influence your progression and career as a producer?
Sure. Honestly, I'll be completely honest. I felt like where the Canadian reggae scene was at and where I felt like I wanted to go weren't lining up.
Yes, yeah.
So I felt like Jamaica is the place. Jamaica is the land of reggae.
Where it starts.
Right. If you want to be a Hollywood star, you go to Hollywood.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you want to be into reggae music on a serious level, Jamaica is where it's at. So for me, it was it made complete sense, or let's say it was a natural decision.
Yeah.
Right, correct. To say like, okay, if I'm gonna take this thing serious in reggae music,
Yeah.
I got to go to the root.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right. And in terms of it influencing me after that, I would say, to be honest, man, like reggae music in Jamaica wasn't what I thought it was.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
The perception of the music, like I thought you'd hear reggae on every corner,
Okay.
but that's not really how it goes
Yeah.
in these times,
Because
right?
yeah.
Dance hall has really become the thing.
Right.
And not to say you don't hear reggae, not to say there's not sounds, not to say the thing's not alive. It is, but it's not on the forefront
Right.
like dance hall is.
It wasn't
right?
as fantasized as you
Exactly.
had imagined it to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
And even more in terms of like recording techniques and all that, I would say that I thought there would be more appreciation maybe for analog tape
Right.
and old school techniques.
Right.
But I was surprised to find out that's not really the case.
Men was done advanced with
Now,
the
man,
timing.
everyone wants to work with Pro Tools and digital and this and that because,
Wow.
again, that's what's going on now.
Yeah.
So it's completely understandable, right?
Yeah.
But also, being a Canadian, being a lover of reggae music, searching for that sound that made me love the music
Yeah.
from the get-go, right?
It wasn't completely evident, right?
No.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the guys that I'm heavily influenced by, King Tubby's Lee Scratch Perry. Like, if you ask a 20-year-old Jamaican kid who King Tubby is,
Probably don't even
most
know.
probably he's never heard that name, or maybe, yeah, man, my grandparents
passing.
listen
Yeah.
to that music or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting. It maybe wasn't what I might have expected it to be, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So let me ask you this just as a side note.
Sure.
Did you have like links there in terms of, did you have contacts
I
there
did.
before you went? Or?
I did,
Okay,
yeah.
alright,
And
alright.
initially, I went down and worked with a Jamaican Canadian,
Right.
and we had a studio in Savlamar, Westmoreland.
Okay.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And that's the name of that is Wild Geese. The name of that recording label is
Studio?
called Wild
Geese.
Geese. Yeah. Yeah, man. And they've been around for a while too. Like they did
Right.
stuff with Little John in the '80s. They've been around for a while too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And-
that was initially I went down and worked with that label.
With that label.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that developed into me doing my own thing and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it started like that. Yeah.
All right.
I'm glad you say your own thing because I know the track Easy Now was a very significant and popular, it had
Respect.
garnered a lot of
Yeah.
attention.
Cool, yeah.
How was that experience at that time?
It was great. Cairo McLean and working with Cairo was great. And again, even to compare that to Jamaica, like I would have maybe expected that you'd hear some younger youths in Jamaica trying to rep the older style.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case. It was a 13-year-old from Scarborough, Canada, who to me seemed to have more of that sound, that
Authentic
original
reggae
sound.
song,
Yeah, and he's an incredibly talented young individual who could play drums, he could play keyboards,
See.
he can sing.
Yeah.
Someone just saw the talent in him. You
Yeah, see a
understand?
bit
what I
of
mean?
yourself in him.
What? Not even so much myself, but just the talent. You
Yeah,
understand what I mean? And just being like, wow, this kid really has it. And I didn't see too much of that in Jamaica. And again, maybe it's the influence, right?
Yeah.
Because dancehall runs the cut,
Yeah.
the younger youths want to sound like Alkaline and Vibes Cartel.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
big up all those artists same way. No
Yeah,
problems with
yeah, of
that, right?
course.
But my love and passion is for the root of the music.
Yeah.
And live instruments and
That original
yeah,
song.
man, drum rolls and horn lines and yeah.
Yeah.
So, like-
And I sorry to cut you up, but I just think
Yeah.
that that's the sound that popularized Jamaican music.
Yes.
And that's the sound that the world really
Most
loves.
times expects. They
Yes.
expect that to
when you
come
hear
out of it.
reggae music and you're
Yeah.
thinking Bob or Peter or that kind of vibe, Burning Spear,
Right.
that's a great juxtaposition to
Alkaline.
Alkaline or Vibes
Yeah,
Cartel.
most
or-
definitely.
right?
And that leads me to my next question.
Sure.
Because as a producer, we has collaborated and worked with so much artists and
Yeah.
across so much different genres.
Yeah.
How your work process is, how you is able to switch. Because you know you might be working with one artist who mindset is this way.
Sure.
And then you meet this next artist, he might be in a whole different genre and he have a whole
Sure.
different. So how you just switch? How you just go?
I have
Yeah?
I think I got a good answer for this one. Referencing.
Okay.
Referencing.
Yeah.
So if like I know an artist has a certain sound, I'm gonna listen to other artists that have that type of sound
Scene.
and try to I don't know if dissect it is the right word, but understand.
The pattern.
Yeah, pattern and what are some of the attributes that are common
Yeah.
in that specific genre. Like I did a jazz record a year and a half ago and we went really far and deep into trying to make the record sound like it was done somewhere between 1950
Old school, yeah,
to
yeah.
nothing past 1980 kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? And that was a production choice,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I would say that doing different genres and working with different artists, you got to study
The genre
the
itself.
genre you're trying. Let's be honest. I mean,
Yes, I.
everyone copies everybody.
Yeah.
That's part of
Learning,
the honoring,
learning.
and that's part of
Yeah.
the honoring
Yes, I. Yes,
of
I.
the tradition.
Yeah.
There's certain things in older reggae music that, to me, should be in a lot of the songs.
Yeah.
Bass, drums,
Yep.
piano, not necessarily keyboard.
Yeah, the
a real
piano.
piano.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
These things have been forgotten a bit, let's say, in the modern production techniques. And yeah, so I would just say that. The simple answer is referencing.
Yeah, I get it.
And sonically too, like both in musical composition and
Yeah.
writing and harmonic structure,
Yeah.
and in where's the top end of the song?
Yeah.
Where's the bass line running? Because if you listen to older recordings,
You would know how to pinpoint.
well, it's just like on a technical level too, like if digital goes from 20 hertz to 20,000, right? And you're getting the absolute full spectrum of human hearing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The older recordings didn't do that. They didn't necessarily span from 20 hertz
Yeah.
to
Okay.
20,000.
I understand what you're
The
saying.
frequency range was smaller.
Yeah.
Right.
But to me, that's part of the brilliance of it as
It's
well.
so
right?
more connected.
You can feel it more.
Yeah.
Right?
Fatness.
And fatness, and you feel like you're there with the artist more.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
it seems
definitely
like some of the,
understand
the modern production is just
that. Plastic.
way, perfect word for it, right?
Plastic.
Way more processed,
Yeah.
way more plastic, and everyone sounds the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas in the mid, or let's say early 70s to mid 80s, every Jamaican producer with a studio had their own sound,
Yeah.
right? You check
Unique.
Jammies,
Yeah, it's a different
it has
song.
a sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
You check what Sugar Minot and them did
Yeah.
with the youth promotion. That's a different thing. You check
Yeah.
what Gregory Isaac and them. It's all different and very unique. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Missing.
missing in some of, not all, because it's still there in some of
Yeah.
it. There's
Yeah.
still some really nice modern roots production. But I don't know. The golden age was still the golden age, I guess, for a reason, right?
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's where my head, when I think about reggae music,
Okay.
goes more towards
Okay.
the origins of it.
It
Yeah.
have any artists currently that stand out to you in terms of that sound that you think representing that song right now?
Well, I'm sitting right here because of this man over here who just spoke earlier, Mr. Miller, and I would say he's
Yeah.
one of the ones who, that was part of the reason why I wanted to work with him as well,
Yeah.
was seeing him on Winford Williams' show
Okay.
and being like, and I believe I was still in Jamaica at that point as well. So being a Canadian
In Jamaica.
seeing a next Canadian
Yeah.
on Jamaican television,
Song, and how you.
I was like, whoa, this
Yeah.
guy's an amazing singer.
Yeah.
And again, I think I love DJs, and there's nothing wrong with DJing, but I think reggae singing has become a bit of a lost art.
Yeah.
So when I see guys like Chester and some other guys who carry that more of a singing sound, I just appreciate it. As a fan of the music as well, not only as a producer of the music,
Mm-hmm.
but just to say some of those classic reggae records that I like to put on vinyl,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Because again, the whole experience,
Yeah.
reggae is was a very vinyl driven thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the whole dub plate culture, vinyl.
And the song and that crackle of these.
right.
Yeah. That crackle of that record going on.
All right.
and- Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And just paying homage to that, you know? And possibly using digital tools as well, or a
Yeah.
combination of analog and digital tools.
Yeah, because the time modernizing, you have to
All
work
right.
with the time as well.
It's nice to be able to show up and mix a song on a laptop.
Yeah.
anywhere in the
The
world.
world,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
My question would be is how did you capture those files
Okay.
into your laptop
Yeah.
so that you can retain some of what we're talking about
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But still remain in a digital world,
Yeah. But
but
still
make it
have the
sound and
authentic song.
feel like
Yeah.
analog,
Proper
right?
fusion.
Yes.
And you being from Canada,
Yeah.
because you just mentioned you was living in Jamaica. And you
Seeing
see
this other
just,
Canadian,
people,
right? Correct, right.
How much of an opportunity have you had to link Canada and your rootsy side? Because I know you have a project, the Weed Shop Rhythm Company.
Yeah. I released that project. I've released a bunch of rhythms over the years. Some on my own label, some on other labels. I'll be honest though, the Jamaican Canadian connection in terms of reggae music is still a bit, in my opinion, how I described. It's still a bit like it's a bit before my time, but there was a club, called the Bamboo
Right.
that used to operate in Toronto way back in the day. The scene and Jamaica, in my opinion, seemed to be better connected
Yeah.
in those times.
Okay.
Where it's a bit more of the same thing that I described now is that, there's dance hall parties in Scarborough every weekend,
Yeah.
right? There's not necessarily a reggae session happening
And
every weekend in and around Toronto, right? And in Canada in general. Like I'm originally from Montreal as well.
Okay.
And the reggae scene in Canada, it's tricky.
Yeah.
There's a huge love for it. And when it's presented a certain way, I find it's very successful.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen artists like Sly and Robbie and the Scatolites, big names, come through like the Montreal International Jazz Fest.
Okay.
And there's 25,000 people.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very well
attended.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well attended, well received. But when you juxtaposition that with some of the local scene, there seems to be quite a big gap.
disconnect.
Right?
Because funny enough,
Yeah.
up in on the spot a little bit.
No
you
problem.
know Jazz Servant,
Jazz Servant.
yeah, from Canada.
I think I've heard that
Yeah.
name,
Well,
but
the
I
funny
don't.
thing is
Sure, okay.
that the label that I have down here, which is Tambranchi Records,
Okay.
we work with Jazz Servant, who is also a Canadian.
Okay.
And he does most of our dubs and
Sure,
mix and masters.
Cool,
So
cool.
It's kind of cool. And then to know that I'm meeting someone else from Canada
Right.
who does reggae, and to know that the scene not so bubbling.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's kind of strange,
Well, I think again, it's like you got to do it for the love of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if that brings the scene,
Yeah.
that brings the scene. If it
Yeah.
doesn't bring the scene,
Just give thanks that you're in the moment.
and you're still on your mission.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yes,
Like it's a mission to me, at least. It's not necessarily about, instant gratification or whatever. Or else I probably would have stopped a long time ago, right? Or even financially. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's not fully about that either. It's more about
The love of
the
it.
love of it
Yes.
and trying to keep. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Rick Rubin,
Yeah.
the producer Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I take his words of wisdom as like you got to do what you love,
Yeah.
True.
and you got to make the music that you love,
Wanna make, yeah.
and put your heart into that,
Yeah.
and then if people dig it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
they'll come check it
I
out.
just
You understand what I mean?
say,
Tell artists that.
you have to start as a fan first.
Exactly.
If you're not a fan of your craft, you're going to burn out eventually because something is not going to align with your spirit. But if you're coming from a place like, you know what I mean, as we say, you're in awe of even being in the moment,
Yeah.
then you would always be driven, you would always find that reason to wake up, that reason, to rise up.
Yeah, and art and commerce and the balance between all that is a tricky
it's a
thing,
tricky
right?
kind of line to walk
Next
because
topic.
Right.
most time the most artistic person is not the most richest in the room you know what I mean, until that moment come for you.
And just like again, like what is art? What is worth something to
Or
somebody?
what is rich?
Sure.
What
sure,
is wealthy?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
So I've seen you last night
Yeah.
in the rehearsal,
Sure.
in a live experience.
Sure.
come alive. I see you in your moment. I see you in that, right? And I know throughout your career you also work as a song engineer.
Yeah, totally.
And he is a producer.
Right.
That is two different fields of sound in terms of, not so much the mixing and getting it right, but
Sure.
the airspace.
Right.
Because you would hear it different in a
Differently,
studio
yeah.
as compared to you're probably in a live settings where you have to make sure 25,000 people, as you say,
All right.
hearing
Make
it
sure
right
that
too.
the vocals sound good and make sure everybody can hear what's going on.
Oh,
Correct.
How that is.
How does that headspace?
Yeah.
Like, well, to be honest, I think there's a great correlation between the two of them, actually.
Yeah.
Live, for the most part, is about the moment and making it sound as good as you can in that moment.
In that moment.
Whereas a recording in the studio,
You can take your time and get it
well,
right.
it's not even that. And it's got to play, or hopefully, if you do your job correct, it's going to play good in every single speaker in the world.
Yeah.
So if you're on a crappy little burner phone,
It's still songing good.
or you're on, you know,
Some
a
Bose-
20,000 watt
Yeah,
PA system,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're still getting some semblance that that's a good balance and that's a good mix.
Mix.
Whereas, again, live, you're dealing with the room, you're dealing with,
That moment.
yeah, that moment, and most of the time, you know, less than optimal acoustical environments, right? The place ain't padded up. There's reflection. There's weirdness,
Cars pass.
and the name of the game is a bit of a different name of the game.
Right.
Feedback control
Right.
is a live game, and you don't have no feedback in the studio, right?
So much.
You understand what I mean?
I have a coach question.
Sure.
Do you think working in that live environment
Yeah.
and working as the producer side of it,
Yeah.
do you think when working on an album, an EP, a song, do you think that does be reflective in it?
100%.
Yes, because why I say
100%.
that, and I'm glad you agree, is because I've been listening to some of the music you work on.
Sure.
And I keep hearing that live element, even
Ah,
if
totally.
it's sung and refined as
Sure,
that
sure.
studio cut, you're
Sure.
still hearing that like the producer was going for that live kind of, you know?
Totally, 100%. And I love that you pick up on that,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Is like, again, going back to it, it's like, to me, reggae music's about real instruments.
Mhm.
And the two digital productions, in my opinion, they just don't carry the same swing. They don't carry the same feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm going for more of exactly what you just described. Making it sound like it's a real drum set. Making it sound like that's a bass player and a guitar player and some horns and
Mhm.
everyone playing together.
Yeah.
Which is, again, back to the original influence of the original way they did reggae music in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Like overdubs weren't as much of a thing from when I've talked to engineers like Fat Man, big up Fat Man from Jamaica, and just other people too, where, you know,
Here's some info about Jamaica.
sure, we're just,
Pass, eh?
we're just like, they played together and they had to get it right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Okay? And the trickery wasn't as involved as much. It was much more a raw talent. Yo, let's hire the musicians to come to the studio that can knock this out
Yeah.
in one take.
It's tape.
Tapes
Yeah.
going, studio times running, hiring the right people for the right job, right? And again, just trying to get it to sound live. And that's why when you make certain of these rhythms, as a producer, well, this is what I do sometimes, is you want to think about, what is it going to sound like in a live sound system?
Well-
Or the same question or the same thing you said, sorry. Where it's like, what is this tune going to sound like if a band plays it on a stage show?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you use those same elements in the studio, then hopefully, what the record sounds like and what the live performance is like is not so far off from each other.
Yeah.
And personally, if you look back again to some older times, even Babylon by Bus,
Yeah.
Bob Marley,
Oh,
Babylon
yeah,
by Bus,
yeah.
hearing those live cuts gives you a different vibe
Yeah.
than the studio cuts
Yeah.
do.
For sure.
But the music was so well arranged and so well put together that it's all so recognizable.
Yeah.
You're like, that's the studio cut, but yo, I really like the live cut because they're even
Yeah,
the
vibing.
vibe's even a bit different. It's in the
yeah,
moment. It's all
yeah.
it's sweet. So yeah,
And,
if you can make records that's translate in both those environments, to me you've done a good job. Yeah.
I know you have a question, Gary, but I want to ask you something because I was listening to an interview a while back, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but what he said is that reggae, for reggae to survive, they have to go back to the live band experience.
Right.
Because
I've seen the same thing you're talking
dancehall,
about. Right.
dancehall is a more track-based genre of music.
Right.
And carrying reggae to that direction really kind of not making it breathe in its truest ear then.
Sure.
Be where it's supposed to be. I'd like to get your take on that.
Oh, totally. And I mean, even personally, like when artists sing on tracks,
Yeah.
to me, it can never have the same
Same
impact
effect, no.
as a band.
Mm.
And just like if you work into think about the mechanics of a band. Mix,
Yeah.
bring it low,
Yeah.
do this or that. A man can control a band. You can kind of control a selector. A selector can mix you down, right?
Yeah.
Still has a vibe. It's still nice.
But
But-
you had that human touch, that
Human touch, and even sonically.
Yeah.
If you're on a big system, usually when the band comes on, it sounds better than any record that's being
Yeah.
played through the system,
yeah,
right?
yeah, most definitely.
So you're hearing sound coming acoustically from the stage,
Yeah.
drums at lick hard,
Yeah.
guitar amps turned up, bass amps up, and you're hearing it come through the
Yeah.
20,000 watt PA system, right? And yeah, so for me, tracks can never have the impact of live.
Live band is it because I even feel I like it a lot better when I hear the live, even the dancehall.
Sure.
Even though it's a track-based thing. When I hear Valiant with a big band or a popcorn
Sure.
and the
Right.
band, the rhythm, the song, like yo,
Crazier, nicer.
dude.
Yeah,
Them
something
mix
about that
harder,
drums when
it's
that
even
drum set
harder.
your heart.
Yeah,
Yeah, when that
yeah.
drum set it your heart. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I want to touch Canada once more.
Sure.
Actually, I'm a little biased because I have family there.
Sure. Yeah.
And one of my cousins actually,
That maple leaf, right?
one of my cousins actually owns a club
Okay.
in Montreal.
Cool. In Montreal. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So actually, I don't Montreal, Toronto. I could be mistaken.
That's a whole other story,
Yeah,
right?
But it was a major club.
Okay.
And I always like the opportunity of coming to Canada
Sure.
and doing some type of reggae
Sure,
thing.
sure.
How hard would that be for me as coming from Trinidad? And is there any steps you taking towards developing the scene more in Canada?
These are great questions. I've tried a bit, but again, like in terms of, or let me put it this way. The direction that I would like to bring it to would be more of the international market and the international festivals,
Okay.
right? So to me, especially the more reggae stuff deserves to be on the big stage
Yeah.
in front of a decent crowd. Sometimes these smaller events it's cool.
Yeah.
And you can definitely come to Canada and definitely rock a party with a couple hundred people, right?
Right.
Like for sure those vibes are happening, right? But I'm just saying that big stage show live thing is where I would love to see
Oh,
the
that's even
thing
better.
more in that direction,
Yeah.
right? I've attempted it a bit, but artists have to have records and videos and everything
The package.
ready to go, and like even some of the bigger festivals in Canada, like you need the record. They won't put you on the festival that year unless you have a new record.
Yeah.
And you can't necessarily use a record from 5 years ago either.
Yeah.
Or maybe the 5 years ago record will get you in 1 year.
Yeah, but it won't
But if
carry
you don't
you
make
far.
if you don't make new
Yeah.
content,
Yeah. So you have to stay relevant as
gotta
an
stay
artist to
relevant.
keep in the circuit.
and from their point of view, I guess as well, if they're trying to, have their merch table and whatever at the festival, and they want to promote everybody's
Right.
record, it's a way for everyone to do business together. Let's put it that way, right? Right.
And I know you.
I'm not trying to knock Canada anyway, right? I'm just trying to say, yeah.
I mean, man. No, you're keeping it real. You
No,
know?
I'm keeping it real. And, like,
Yeah.
again, like,
That's the only way it could
no,
improve.
totally, for sure. And
Yeah.
again, like, Canada is not the root of reggae music.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
New markets.
you know,
Yeah.
maybe it makes sense that it doesn't have.
Maybe the thing now building. Maybe
Or
it's now kind of
yeah,
building.
sure. And it's been building. And
Yeah.
and many of the greats, Leroy Sibbles, King Jammies, have spent time in Canada and have made some music in Canada. But again, I just don't think the world necessarily equates those two things together.
Yeah, and that's
right?
definitely what you say.
Right.
Yeah.
The place when you're thinking, even I would even say Europe has
Yeah.
developed their scene way more.
Yeah.
And if you bring it again back to Bob and all them, that's where they went to tour.
Yeah.
So the Europeans were exposed to the highest level of live reggae music
Yeah.
from those times.
Yeah.
So they have a great appreciation for it. I don't know. I think Bob came to Canada a couple times. I think he played Toronto a couple times, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I don't think it was as geared
Yeah.
towards Canada. And I don't think reggae music has ever been geared towards Canada that much. And even America.
Yeah.
It's only of recent with the newer bands and the California scene
Yeah.
that they really say that, you know, America has a proper,
Yeah, reggae
thriving
scene.
reggae scene, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another coach question.
Sure.
Because you're good at answering questions, you know? Yeah. And you mentioned Chester earlier on,
Sure.
Chester Miller earlier
Sure.
on, right?
Sure.
And I know you say you heard his music and his voice stood out to you,
Right.
right? But we hear on the couch, and it's not just a man's voice because it have 1,000 voices
Sure.
out there.
Sure. Sure.
You know? What about Chester Miller that stand out to you that make you all do those two EPs and so much other works together and take
Energy, man.
energy?
Energy.
Yeah.
If you have a good vibe with someone, the music flows natural.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And it's not complicated,
See.
right?
Yeah.
If the energy is not right,
Yeah.
things can get complicated,
Complicated. And,
quickly.
yeah, definitely
Right?
understand what you mean.
Yeah, man. So when the vibes are right,
And
it's not hard. It's not
But
difficult.
even like when I researched Dennis,
Sure.
yeah, it was most of his hits
Yeah.
came from its one source.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what source was that?
Don't go. Don't,
Okay, sorry.
So
No, I was wondering if you were going to say
but-
Joe Gibbs or
well,
our
I'll paraphrase the main
producer or
first,
whatever, right? Sure.
But when he went outside of that little thing where
Sure.
all his hits were making,
Sure, sure.
it didn't have the same ring. Now, or the
Resonance or
yes,
whatever, right,
the-
okay.
The true fans of Dennis would know the songs, love the songs, but
Right.
to say that it's like a prophet rides again, you know,
Sure.
love will
Those classics or
love
whatever.
and hate, yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I see that same vibe with you and Chester, where
Okay.
you know when you find that
Song that
perfect
match
together.
song, it
Yeah.
just works,
Yeah.
and I don't think we should like play with that too much.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's not broken, don't
Don't
try to
fix
fix it,
it,
right?
yeah.
Lee Scratch Perry, I think he said too. It's like, I think it was Lee Scratch Perry. I might not have the quote correct, but
Yeah.
just the rhythm and the lyrics go together.
Yeah.
And if you find somebody who can ride your rhythms the right way, yeah, it's just, it's simple.
That's fit.
It's just simple, you know? It's really not complex.
True.
You know what I mean? But I was gonna say something else though.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, go
just
to.
talking about like again, art and making music. I heard this recently too, where it's like, I don't know, how come they don't sound like they used to sound?
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it was interesting, the point of view was more like maybe the artist's headspace
It's not the
is
same.
not the same.
Yeah.
So you can't expect a man to necessarily make the same music he was making
Music.
20 years ago,
Evolve.
for example, than he's making today.
Yeah.
Unless you're, like you said, like you gotta like be conscious of the fact of your sound
Yeah.
and be like, okay, I don't really want to sway from this too much. Like,
Yeah.
this is the sound I want to make, and I want to stick with this sound. Now, again, technology's changing, and the way recording and the way it's changing,
Yeah.
but you can also stick to
something that
your way if
Yeah,
it works for you,
that wasn't broken.
right? Like I've gone back to recording on tape,
Okay.
and
Interesting.
there's something magical there that I find, especially in trying to capture the sound that I'm trying to capture.
So is that you record it onto the tape and then you transfer it digitally if you
right.
need be or something?
All right, exactly.
Yeah. Oh.
And try to, again, capture the most I can in the analog format
Right.
Yeah.
before that dump
Digital.
happens into digital, right?
I understand too.
Yeah,
Right,
I-
right,
yeah,
I can
right.
dig that
Yeah, I
process.
dig
Respect
yeah,
that. But again, it's like it takes a tiny bit of a different dedication.
For sure.
You got to get the machine.
Yeah.
You got to find tape.
Yeah.
You got to find somebody who can work on the machine for you because the machines break down. It's a mechanical, physical thing. It's not a, well, I guess you could say the same argument as for a computer. If your computer breaks it down, you got to bring it to a shop to get it fixed. But
it
like,
ain't gonna last forever.
right. But this is more like you need a mechanic for your tape machine to just be able to look it over. And yeah, so I'm recording on 2-inch tape again.
Okay.
And again, like going back again to just the process a bit, all of the records made were done in a specific process up till about, I don't know, the 90s, let's say. Up till about 1990.
Yeah.
If you look on the back of old records, you say AAD, analog, digital,
Oh.
right?
See.
If you were to look at a new recording, it would just be DDD.
Yeah.
There's no processes. It's all digital, right?
Yeah.
Where back in the day, you record on multi-track tape, you mix down to a 2-track tape.
Right.
So that's 2 layers of tape right
Yeah.
there. And then you might even get that tape mastered
Yeah.
as your final product, and that's a third master tape. So you're getting 3 layers of analog saturation.
Yeah.
Records aren't made like that anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. And we're getting close in the digital realm to try to replicate these things. But the real deal is the real deal still, right?
Yeah. Can't fake the real.
All right.
I believe everything have energy in it now.
Yeah.
And creating music, even like if I make a sword,
Sure.
and the sword maker essence goes into the sword. you
For
know.
sure.
I feel the same way with music and even the instruments that you use to create the song.
Nothing you
Put
just said is
yourself in it.
virtual.
Yeah.
Everything you just described is in 3D, is in the physical
It's
realm.
The physical.
Right. So, yeah, just something to be said for it being a bit more of an organic process.
Yeah, for the process.
And seeing that big tape machine roll and hearing the bass line and drums come through that tape machine. Incredible.
So I'd like to say it was a great honor to have
that's
the
good.
eye
Thank you very much.
on the
This was
couch.
blessed.
Thank you very much.
The eye being here, you know. As a producer and a song engineer and a lover of the craft and a person who has been a pioneer and a person there in the craft for such a long time. Do you have any advice you could give up-and-coming producer, up-and-coming creative?
Sure.
You know, before we step out?
Sure, yeah, no, 100%. And again, appreciate the time and the platform.
I mean, love
and
alone,
nice
man.
vibes from you
Love
guys,
alone.
Yes,
yeah?
I.
Yeah.
Nice vibes.
Yes.
Follow your heart, man. Do what you feel is musically right for you. And I don't know, don't watch the crowd.
Yeah. I think that's a life lesson. Yeah, I think that's a life lesson. Don't
Yeah, man.
watch the crowd.
Yeah, man, yeah.
All right. So we appreciate you being here.
Thank you
The
very
vibes
much.
was upward. Yeah, brother.
Oh, brother.
Give thanks to the energy always, right?
Yeah.
So we go on till next time. We'll let them know.
Cool.